When it comes to no-code or even low-code web development, my go-to choice is FlutterFlow. It's a platform that strikes the perfect balance between simplicity and power, making it ideal for crafting virtually any kind of app. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned no-code developer, FlutterFlow has the tools you need to bring your ideas to life with remarkable efficiency. That said, while FlutterFlow excels in app creation, the backend is just as critical for a seamless user experience. Supabase has long been a reliable option, offering robust features and integrations. But here's the thing, the no-code and low-code ecosystem is constantly evolving, and there are countless backends out there, some even more user-friendly and capable in specific scenarios. Today, I want to introduce you to one such backend that has genuinely impressed me. It's not just powerful, it's intuitive, feature-rich, and surprisingly easy to use. Could this be the ultimate backend solution for your next project? Let's go ahead and dive in and explore this amazing backend. Now, this video is going to be divided into 3 parts. In the first part, we're going to have a quick overview of Xano, as well as a quick rundown of my dashboard so that you can see all the features and functionality of this app. In the second part of the video, we're going to be focusing on the main features that Xano provides, and mainly that's going to be databases, APIs, and some of the things that make him behave so seamlessly and so easily for your apps. And then later in the video, I'm going to be showing you a fully functioning proof of concept app that I built using FlutterFlow, which is my favorite no-code app builder. And that way you can see why it's so easy to integrate Xano with FlutterFlow. And trust me, you're going to be amazed once you see some of these little features that make it super seamless to get these two tools working together. And so here we are on Xano.com, and this is backend visual development. Start fast with AI, customize with full control. Test our AI, tell our AI your app idea, and it generates your backend database in seconds. Build, customize, and scale to millions. Okay, and so if we keep scrolling, you're going to be seeing like the platform overview, store data, connect to services, customize workflow. Here we have this API builder, which is actually very, very interesting and very powerful, and many people are not talking about it. Power a front-end code or no code, import data from other platforms, send and receive webhooks, connect to any REST or GraphQL API. So it's awesome, works really nice. Build APIs with no code, right? So if you keep scrolling, you have database, all the database features, store data with no record limits, search, filter, and aggregate, server. And so overall, Xano is amazing. It has lots of different subsystems, and each of these subsystems works really well and has tons of features, right? They all pack a ton of features. And so what you want to do next is you want to start with your free account, which you can sign up for by clicking here, get started for free. And once you do that, you're going to be on a screen that looks something like this. And so here I am using the free plan, which is enough to kind of get started and kind of test the features out, get your feet wet, and see what Xano is all about. And so here on the main kind of screen, we have the dashboard. And here you can see like my API requests, the different API names, the different API endpoints, and how many times they were executed, my databases. And if I have other services that I'm using, you would be seeing them in little widgets here as well. Okay. Next, we have the database screen here, and here you can create various tables. You can link them together. You can filter the kind of data that you want to see. And I'm going to be showing you all of that in just a moment. Next, we have the APIs. Okay. And so, you need to be able to access your data. You need to be able to manipulate the data that you set up here. And you can do that via your APIs. And what's cool about Xano is that once you create your tables, you can auto-generate your API calls, and then you can clone them, you can modify them very, very quickly and easily. And so as you can see here, I have different API groups. I have my auth, I have my habits progress, and these two are connected to an app that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. I have my public APIs and I have my user APIs. Okay. Next, we have tasks, and this is where you can create all kinds of interesting background tasks. Okay. Very, very powerful, followed by a library. Here we have functions, right? You can expedite your workflow with a function. Right? Functions are reusable business logic. So you can add a function. We have add-ons here, okay? And so these are very, very cool. And you're going to be learning more about this in just a little bit, but these are very, very powerful. And like I said, it's all going to make sense a little bit later in the video. Next, we have middleware, okay? And here is where you can edit and publish different middleware. We have public files. We have private files. We have unit tests. We have workflow tests. Next, we have marketplace featured. And so here's where you can get started with some starter templates. You also have various extensions, user auth, security, messaging, payments. You can scroll down. You can see some of these other templates here that you can get started with. You can take a look at some of the things that you may have purchased. Okay. You also have something called the Developer Center. Okay. Followed by Connect. This is where you can use their new Connect Center. And so you can connect to some third-party services, right? They're going to be adding more connections soon. But as of now, we have Webflow and we have NC Scale. And last but not least, you have various settings, right? System variables, processing jobs. You can reset your workspace, things like that. All right. So now that we've had a quick overview of Xano, its main subsystems, its functionality and features, let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper, and let's start doing that with this database functionality here, okay? So here I have a bunch of tables that I have created, but these are going to be used for another project. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create another table just to show you how it's done. And you can create a table by clicking here, and here you have a couple of options, right? And so we're going to enter data manually. And this table is going to be called people. Okay. So we're just going to be storing like various people here, and you can kind of fill out this. I'm just going to skip that. Now, what's important here is you want to select add basic CRUD endpoints. Okay. And here I already have these endpoints, right? And I want to create a separate one. So I'm going to create a new API group. I'm just going to call it people, and I'm going to click on add table. Okay. That's going to go ahead and create not only a table for me, but also the API group with various API calls that I'm going to be showing you in a little bit. Now, here's our new table. Let's go ahead and create some fields or columns, okay? And so the first column I want to create is name, okay? And here we can choose the data structure. This is going to be single. We're going to add a column. And now we have this new column created. I'm going to also create another column. This is going to be city, okay? So for each person, their city. Add the column. And last but not least, I want to create a state. Okay. And I'm going to click on add column. So now we have a table here with the following 5 fields, right? ID, created at, name, city, and state. Now we can create the actual records manually, or we can generate them. So I'm going to click on generate. Now for each of the records, I want to make sure that it is going to create the right values, right? So for name, this is full name. For city, this is random city in US. And for state, this is random state. We want 20 records, and I'm going to click on generate. So it went ahead and it created some sample or dummy data for us, right? So we have all of these names, we have cities, and we have states. Okay, here. Okay, so this is going to be nice for prototyping, starting with our kind of data, building our data scheme, our database scheme, kind of working our way. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to create another table. Okay. And so the idea here is, we have a table of people, but each person here might own one or more cars, right? And so if you're familiar with like databases, this is a classic one-to-many relationship. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another table, and I'm going to call it cars. Okay. And we are going to be using a new API group for this. Okay. I'm just going to create a new API group called cars. Okay. And I'm going to add this table. And what's going to happen here is that in this table, this is going to have a collection of records of cars that belong to a certain person. So first, let's go ahead and add a couple of columns here. So I'm going to start off with a make. Okay. And I'm going to do a model, and I'm going to do a year. Actually, year is going to be an integer. And last but not least, we want to be able to link it to a particular person. And here we're going to select table reference. Okay. And now we can select where we want to link it to. Okay. So in our case, I'm going to select people, and this is going to be people ID or person ID. In fact, I'm just going to say person ID, and this is single, and I'm going to add this column. And so now we have all our columns set up. And this time, instead of generating the records using this feature, I'm just going to add them manually so that you can see how this works. And so here, all you need to do is click on add record. And now you can just, create the value. So let's say we have a BMW, let's say an M3, and let's say the year is 2020, and the person ID, let's select this, and I can link it to, let's say, Timothy. Okay, let's go ahead and add a couple of other records. Let's say this is a Lexus, let's say GS400, and the year is, 2015. And let's say this is also Timothy. So Timothy now has 2 cars. That's enough for Timothy. Let's create 2 more records and link them to somebody else. So let's say this is a Toyota. This is a Toyota Camry. This is going to be 2022. And I'm going to link it to the next person, to Regina. And last one, this is a Honda. And I'm going to say Honda Accord. And let's say the year is 2019. And this is going to be also, going to belong to Regina. Okay. And so now what we have here is we have 4 cars, and 2 of them belong to Timothy and 2 of them belong to Regina. Okay. And so this is a quintessential one-to-many relationship. So we have people over here, and these are just people records, and we have cars over here. Okay. Now, let's say we want to access this data, right? Well, we already have API calls created for us, right? So I can click on APIs, and look, we have cars and we have people here. Okay. So if I go into people, I have these 5 endpoints that allow me to do pretty much anything that I want, right? So I can get all the people records. I can add a people record. I can delete people record. I can get a specific people record by people ID, or I can edit a specific people record by people ID, right? And all of this was generated automatically for us. And this is awesome, because it's going to save us a lot of time and a lot of bugs, and it's awesome. Now, if I click on one of these, it opens up a workflow screen, okay, which means that this API call is not just an API call. I can actually modify it. I can change how it works, right? So we have inputs here. We have a function stack, which is our logic, right? And you can do a lot of interesting things here. And we have a response, okay? And so for input, we don't have any inputs because this is a query all people record, right? If we go back and let's say we want to edit a people record, now we have some inputs because, well, we need to decide what we want to edit, right? You just basically give it the fields and the values, and it's going to edit for that people ID. Or if we go over here, get, we have a people ID because this one, unlike the previous one that gets you all of them, you need to specify an input and it's going to filter it, right? So it's going to filter it. Okay. So let's go back to the first one and let's click here because this function stack has one thing here. If we click here, you can modify how it works further. Okay. So you can do joins. You can join with another table, and you can also do a custom query. Okay. So which means is that we can query these records by any column, by state, by name, by city, you name it. So let's say we want to query this by state. Okay. So I'm going to add an input, and this input is going to be text, and I'm going to call it state. It's single. I'm going to add this input over here. And now we have a state input that we need to pass when we do this API call. And so now what I want to do is I want to filter it by this input. So I'm going to click here. I already have this open. And so I'm going to go into this custom query. I'm going to add a query. I'm going to add a conditional, and I'm going to say, well, I want to query by people state where people state is equal to this input state. That's it. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to publish this. Okay. And so now we've modified this API call. So if I go into run, you see it now wants state. And so let's say we enter Texas. Okay. I actually don't know if you have people in Texas that we generated among the 20 people that we've, randomly generated, but let's see. So I'm going to put state and I'm going to click on run. Okay. When I run it, I do not have any results. And that is probably because none of the people that we generated have state as Texas. So let's go ahead and check. We're going to come over here and let's take a look. And as you can see, there is no Texas in here. But there is Hawaii, there is New York, there is Oregon. So let's try Oregon, okay? As an example, we're going to go back to this API. We're going to go into people. We're going to come here, which is the API call that we modified. Come back here. and click on run, change this to Oregon. And now if we run it, and we have a match, we have one person, right? Joanne Kennedy happens to be in Oregon. Okay, now we can try something else. We can try maybe Hawaii. I think there was a person or two in Hawaii. Run this, and we have a person here in Hawaii. Okay, Roy is in Hawaii. Okay, so we've just modified a generic API call to filter by a specific state. Okay, and typically you're not going to be modifying it directly. What you want to do is you want to clone it, right? So I'm going to clone it. It's going to be in the same group. I'm going to press continue, and I'm going to say people by state. Okay, I'm going to clone this endpoint, and now we have it here. Okay, so this is a different endpoint. It's no longer people. It's a special endpoint. So I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Okay, I'm just going to click here, delete this, and also delete this custom query, because we are reverting it to how it was before. Okay, so now once we hit save and we hit publish and we come to run it, we no longer need to enter state. Okay, because there's no more inputs here. Okay, so now if you run it, we get back 20 people. Okay, we have, 10 here, the result success. And if you click here, we have 10 more. Okay. And so now it gives us back all of the 20 people. But if we go back here, we still have it, right? We can still filter by state. Now here I can put, we're going to run it and we're going to get this person. Okay. So we've just cloned our automatically generated API endpoint, and we added some extra functionality. Okay. Which is really, really nice. Now, a very, very common use case would be to get the people and their cars together. Because remember, we have another table cars that's linked to people. So, we can get the people and we can also get their cars, right? Now, typically, if you're using something like Supabase, you will need to create a view to do it, right? But in Xano, it's a lot easier, right? So let's say I want to create a new endpoint that's going to give us all the people plus their cars. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to clone this endpoint. I'm going to keep it in the same API group. And I'm going to say people, cars. Okay. Which is kind of self-explanatory. Now we have people, cars. Now I'm going to click on it and I'm going to make a couple of changes, right? We're still not going to have any inputs. But if we come over here, what we want to do here is we want to change the output. So I'm going to go into output, and here's the output, right? We can customize it. Right? So I can click on customize. We can customize how it looks, but I don't want to customize it. I want to add something to it. So I want to click on add-on. And now what I want to do is I want to create a new add-on. And so I've already created these add-ons for another project. Here, I want to create a brand new add-on, and it's asking me which database table do you want to add to your response? And this is going to be cars. And next it's asking me, how do you want the data returned? Well, this is going to be a list of items, because a person can have multiple cars. Okay, you can also do single item. You can do list of items. You can do item count, like how many cars. You can have existence, whether they have any cars at all. Or you can do aggregate. Okay, I want to do list of items. And here I want to select a relationship. Now, if you recall, we had this relationship here. Cars person ID, which is linked to the people table. So I'm going to select this. I can add a sort. I can enable pagination. I can also have distinct records. I'm just going to do automatic. I'm going to click on next. And now what I want to do is I want to name this add-on. So it's giving me cars of people. I'm just going to go with that. Create add-on. So it's going to go create an add-on. It's telling me how this is going to work. This is the join here. It's cars of people. And this is what we are going to get. Make and model year. And I can also customize this. Remember, you can think of this as the child response. It's going to be embedded in the main response. Well, this is fine. I'm going to click done. And now look at this. We have the main record, right? Name, city, state, and also this child record, which contains the cars, right? This is going to be multiple, right? It's going to be one or more. Okay. And so I'm happy with this. I'm going to hit save. And now I'm also going to hit publish. I'm going to hit publish. Okay. I want to make sure people, cars, no input. Check this out. I'm going to run this, and look at this. It's going to get us the cars of people. So all of this is blank, blank. If we keep going, let's take a look. And now we get to Timothy. Timothy has two cars, a BMW and a Lexus. And Regina has two cars as well, a Toyota and a Honda. Okay. And what's cool here is that it gives us this really nice JSON data response here, right? Which is awesome because now we don't have to create the view. We don't have to mess with anything. We can just mix and match how, how we want the data to look like, right? What kind of data do we want to work with? We just basically tell it and it comes up with it, right? And this is awesome because it's going to save us a lot of, creating views and all of these things. Okay. And so now I have this over here. You can also create a unit test, like for testing, for making sure that this is exactly what you get. So I can click over here and I can create a unit test and I can say, well, I'm expecting a result that looks like this, right? Because if the result doesn't look like that, then there's something wrong with my API call. Because if the inputs are the same and everything is the same, this is what we're going to get. If we don't get this, then there's probably an issue with the database. Maybe one of our other engineers changed something in the database, and this is an issue, right? And so really, really awesome. And we just made a major change quickly and easily. Now, let's say we also want to get only certain type of data. We want to filter. We want to create a filter. Well, we can still do it. I can add this input and I can say, well, we want, people in a certain state like we did before. Well, I can add this text. I can say state. I can add this input. I can come back here and I can add this custom query, right? I can add a conditional. I can come over here, people state equals to state. We can save that. We can save all of this. We can publish this. And now what we have is we have that custom response, but we can also send in a state. So I'm going to run this. State is Hawaii. Let's say I run this and we get, Roy Moreno, but he doesn't have any cars. We still get all of this. This is still there. It's just no cars. And obviously you can create all kinds of interesting filters where you have more than 3 cars, less than 3 cars, where you have this, where you have that. The choices are really unlimited, right? And you can add a function here. You can also, clone it, right? You can get all query from something else, all right? So I can clone it and here I can click here and I can change it, right? So now let's say I want to get it from something else. I want to filter. I want, this kind of output. I want to, another join. I can do all kinds of interesting things. Okay. So let me go ahead and delete this because we no longer need that. And in terms of the response, typically you're just going to leave it as is because you just want the data to come in. Okay. And so that is one way to change how your data appears and change filtering. And remember, you can do a lot more, right? So if you come over here, you have this external, right? You have paging. Which page of the records to return, per page, offset, search, sort. So many awesome things, right? You can modify it. You can just get the exact data that you want, right? So now you can easily just create your tables, link them together, right? And then in your API calls, you can change how you want that data to be pre-processed or post-processed, or whether you want to join with another table and get just that data, or you want to just have like, a different data structure, or you want to, filter by something, right? All of that is super easy and just super straightforward to do with Xano. Now, last but not least, I want to show you how easy it is to integrate Xano with pretty much any other tool or app builder. In this case, we're going to be using FlutterFlow, which is my favorite no-code app builder. Makes it super easy to build just about any kind of app connected to any kind of service, or as the case is here, connected to Xano. Okay. And so what I did here is I built a simple app that allows you to track your habits. Okay. And so let's go ahead and run this app first. And then I'm going to show you a very awesome feature that allows you to kind of integrate things quickly and easily. And trust me, you're going to be amazed. Okay. So let's come over here. Let's go ahead and start a new session. All right. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to log in, and I'm actually using custom authentication because I'm logging in against a user table that I have stored here. And I'm going to be showing you how that all works in just a moment. So if we head over to our database over here, you can see that we have a users table, right? So if you click over there, you can see that there's 2 records there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as James for now. All right. So I'm logging in as James and I've just logged in. And so this is a fairly simple app. And on this screen, we have a list of habits. These are my habits, right, that are assigned to me. And so you can see this is reading, and I want to do 30 minutes per day. This is a daily habit. So I did it just once. I started today actually. And another habit that I want to work on is running. And the idea is to run 75 minutes per day. And I've actually been doing it for the past 3 days. Okay. And so we see this. We can also add a habit here. So let's say I want to add a habit called swimming, and I want to swim daily. And let's say I want to swim 30 minutes per day. And my start date is going to be today. I'm going to add this here. And so here we have swimming, and this is empty because I haven't marked it as complete yet, which is something that I would do once I complete it. Another thing that we can do is we can delete habits, right? So I can click over here, and that's deleted. I can delete all of these as well. And last but not least, we can also modify habits. So let's say I want to modify this reading habit. All I need to do is click on the name over here. We have this pop-up, and let's say reading, I want to read 45 minutes per day. Okay, I'm a little bit more ambitious. I'm going to put 45, click on update. And now that has updated that to 45 minutes per day. Okay. And so this is a fairly simple app. We have custom authentication and we have this nice screen. But behind the scenes, lots of things are happening, which thanks to Xano were a breeze to implement. Okay. So let's go back to our app and let's start with the basics. And that is the API calls. So as you can see here, I actually have 3 API groups. We have habits, habits progress, and auth. Why do we have habits and habits progress? Because these are 2 different tables, right? So if you go back over here, you can see that we have habits here and habits progress. And this is a one-to-many relationship, okay? So if we come over here and click on show relationships, you can see that habits progress, and habits have a one-to-many relationship, right? These are habits that I'm working on, but habit progress is for each habit, you essentially are entering anytime you do it. So, every day you may have a check mark for one of the habits that you do here. So if I click on habits, you can see that there are 2 habits and they're both my habits. Okay. And so if we go into habits progress, you can see that there are 4 habit items that are also assigned to running, which is my habit in this case. Okay. So there are 3 for running and 1 for reading, and all of these are my habits. Okay. And so this is a one-to-many relationship with 2 tables. And that is why we have 2 separate groups for it, right? Because there are 2 separate API calls. Now, one of the most painful things when it comes to integrating a backend, a third-party backend, not like Supabase or Firebase, a third-party backend using API with something like FlutterFlow, is that, yeah, we have this API calls here automatically generated, but they're not generated in FlutterFlow, right? Typically, that is something you have to do yourself. Well, I'm here to tell you that I did not manually enter any of these calls here. All of these were generated automatically and they were uploaded automatically, right? They're essentially, imported automatically. How does this work? Well, let me show you this really cool, actually, this is a FlutterFlow feature. So let's say you want to import habits, right? You're going to have this API group created. Well, all you need to do is click here, and then you want to click on Swagger documentation. When you click on that, you're going to be redirected to this screen. Now, what is Swagger? You can think of Swagger as kind of this format, right, for API calls. It's very, very popular, very, very common. And typically what you're going to be shown is this page, right? If you're trying to use some third-party API calls, you're trying to learn about API calls, well, they're going to give you the Swagger page. And what you can do on the Swagger page is you can actually play with these API calls, right? So for instance, let's say I click on this. Well, I can click on try it out and I can actually execute it, right? So let's say habits ID is, 2. I can execute it. And guess what? I'm going to get a habit, right? So in this case, it's not there. Let's say habits ID is 1 or let's say habits ID is 3 and I execute it and I'm actually deleting it. Okay. So I actually deleted these habits right now. So this actually works, right? So you have to be careful, right? So let's say I try to do get, I click on try it out and I try habit 1 and it's not there because I actually deleted it, right? Demonstrating it to you, but still it is there. Well, I can go back to FlutterFlow and I can create it, right? But What's nice about Swagger here is that you can actually import all of this into FlutterFlow, and you do that by clicking this link. If you click this link, you're going to be shown a JSON version of the previous page, right? So of this page, you're going to be shown a JSON. So what you want to do is you want to save this file, and then what you want to do is you want to click this very, very powerful button that says Import Open API. And this is the same as Swagger. Swagger, Open API, they're kind of interchangeable terms, right? So I'm going to click here, and you want to do upload. When you do that, you're going to have a new API group created here automatically for you and filled in automatically with all of these. Okay. Amazing, amazing, which means that you can easily create your database, create all that, and simply import the generated API groups into FlutterFlow, which is exactly what I did. And so this is very, very powerful. And unfortunately, a lot of people do not know about this feature. Okay. Let's go back and let's continue the walkthrough of the app. So we have the home page here. And on the home page, the main widget is this list view. Okay. So the list view lists the habits. Okay. We come over here. It executes this habits by user, which is this call here that I have created where we need to specify user ID. And it does this filtering, right? This custom query that filters just the habits for the specific user, which is exactly what's happening here. Here, I'm just hard coding a user ID, which is my user ID for James, and I'm getting a list of my habits, right? And another thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you generate children from this variable, right? Because here you just get an array, but you want to get the children so that you can actually use it in your list view. So I have this, and here I'm just doing a JSON body from that previous response, and I'm calling it habits list. And then for each habit, I'm displaying the items. So name, frequency, and here what we have is we have a row of that other table, right? That habit progress, I think it's called, right? What is it called? It is called habit progress. Yeah. And how are we getting it? How are we displaying it inside of this list view? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. You can execute a separate API call, but that's expensive and it's performance heavy. It's going to make your app slower. It's also going to be more expensive because you're executing more API calls, right? Maybe you have a set limit, a set quota, and you're going to be executing for every single habit. So it's going to be expensive real quick. Or what we can do is we can use that technique that I talked about previously in Xano by altering the response, right? So if I go into this API, I go into our habits, I go into this call, and let's make it a little bit bigger. I click here, I go into output. You see this add-on here. Well, what I did was I clicked here and I created another add-on. I clicked on create a new add-on. And then I said, well, I want to connect to habit progress. And then it asked me, do you want a single item? I want a list of items. And then what I did was I selected habit ID because this habit ID is linked to that other table, habits, by its ID. Okay, we're going to get out because I already have it. And as a result, now I not only get the actual habits, the habit information, name, description, frequency, start date, but I also get the habit progress for each habit. I'm basically creating a view on the fly, which is very, very powerful. And it's just a couple of clicks, right? With Supabase, it's going to take you a little bit longer, right? Because you need to maybe use AI. You need to tell it what to do. Here, it's just a couple of clicks, right? So I can add another add-on, right? So let's say, maybe I'm looking to modify this here. I can click on add-on. I can create a new add-on. Or maybe I want to add an add-on in this top level. No problem. I can do that. I can do that. Or maybe I want to delete this add-on. Well, I can simply click over here and I can delete it. By clicking here, I can modify it. I can change it. I can change its name. I can customize the response. Or I can delete it by clicking this garbage can icon here, right? And that's going to delete this child element here, which is amazing, right? Because in FlutterFlow, we like to have list views. We also like to have some list inside a list view, maybe 3 levels, maybe 4 levels. I mean, I do it constantly. I'm sure you do it constantly too. If you're building, fairly complex, comprehensive production ready apps, chances are you're going to be dealing with this issue as well. And that's really, really easy when it comes to doing it here, right? So as a result, I don't need to execute another API call. There's no API calls here. All I need to do is take that value, right? This habit all, which is this thing here, as a JSON path, and I need to just generate children from it, right? This is going to be habit days. And now if we go into text, what I have here is that I'm getting the days, right? I'm getting this thing here, right? I'm getting the date, right? You see this date. Now, the issue here is that this date, because we're getting pure JSON, it's a string. And in my case, I want to format this date, right? Because remember, we have like not a lot of space. So I can display maybe just the day, or I can display the month and the date, the month and the date. I think that's a better approach. And so what we're doing here first is I created a custom function that takes a string and parses it into a date. This is the custom function, just one line here. And so what this function allows me to do is it allows me to actually convert it into a date time format. And once I have it in date time, guess what? I can't format it, right? Because I cannot do it with a pure string, because FlutterFlow does not know, what kind of data it is, right? I need to convert it into a specific type, and then I can do a date time format, and I can select my format. I like to do this one, in this specific case. And as a result, that is what we have. Okay. And so by creating this response, by kind of massaging it and sculpting it in the exact form I want, with all the fields exactly how I want, it's just super easy in the app anymore. And that's kind of what you want, right? You want the easy stuff in the app. You want the hard stuff in your backend. Okay. And so as a result, makes it super easy to display the exact values that I need to display. Apart from that, everything else in the app is just a bunch of API calls, right? So this delete over here, I'm basically calling this backend call delete habit. In this habits group, I'm passing the habit ID, and then I'm checking the status. If it's successful, I'm showing a snack bar. If it's not successful, I'm showing a dialog box here, and that automatically deletes it and refreshes the main list view. And the same thing here. This is to create a new one. I am displaying this add habit bottom sheet that is basically displaying this component here. And what this component is doing is displaying this. And then I have add habit, which is the exact same flow here. I'm just, passing all of these, and I am creating it. If it's successful, I'm showing a snack bar. Otherwise, I'm showing the error. And last but not least, when it comes to editing, I have an action attached to this text widget, and that displays this added habit, and that displays all the values. And then if you click here, it sends this put API call that essentially updates that specific record, that specific habit. Okay, so a fairly simple app, but a fairly useful app. And we were able to build it so quickly thanks to Xano, right? Thanks to all the magic that we're doing on the back end, which has been super helpful for us. And obviously, this is just the beginning, right? I mean, we're just scraping essentially the top of the surface, right? There's so many other things that you can do. And really, the way that I like to think of it is, I want to have data in a certain way. I want to have data in another way. I want to have data in this way, in that way, in this way, in that way. And Xano can make all of that possible, right? Because you can customize so many things, right? You can customize the response. You can customize all of these add-ons. That's what it calls essentially. When you join, when you're trying to get data from somewhere else, that's called an add-on. You can customize it. You can change the filter. You can add a filter. You can, change the name. You can do all kinds of interesting things. And that's just the beginning. You can add more inputs, add more functions, add more data. You can join tables. You can essentially get the data that you need. Any kind of data that you need, you'll be able to get it using some of the wizardry, right? The magic that you can do it here. And that is just the API. We have this fully capable database here that allows you, to create relationships, a lot of interesting things. You have, started templates. You have a lot of cool stuff. And of course, beyond that, we're also using custom authentication, right? So if you go into authentication, we're using custom. And so and the way that works is that we have a login screen. We enter email and password, sign in, and here we do an API call. And this is this API call. This is auth, login, and retrieve authentication token. So if we go here, we have this one. Login and retrieve auth token, right? So if you click here, look how complex it is. We need to get record. We have a precondition. We want to validate the password. We have another precondition. And then we create authentication token, okay? That we sent to the user. And here we return just the authentication token. We're not returning the whole thing. We're not returning like an entire record. We are returning an auth token. And as a result, we can easily use this with FlutterFlow with their amazingly flexible custom authentication feature, right? So we, the user tries to log in. We do the check. If we succeeded, we log him in. If not, we show them the error message, right? And so Xano allows you to build a fully functioning app by taking care of the most important things, right? The hardest things, which is database, APIs, background running tasks, all kinds of interesting things. You can do all of that with Xano. Now, the main reason that I built this app is obviously to show you how Xano works, but also to let my amazing Patreon members, my amazing supporters that I love very, very much, to get access to this app. And that's exactly what you'll be able to do. And so if you're part of our amazing Patreon community, you'll be able to view and or clone this app just like you're able to do with the other apps. Pretty much all my apps that I built on this channel, as part of all the tutorials and as part of all the demos, they're all there. You can clone, you can view and or clone them. And really, that's the best way to gain knowledge, to gain experience, to become better. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about the videos that you watch or the tutorials that you read or the books that you read. It's about practice, right? And when you watch the video, you're learning it. But when you practice, you're going to be learning it 10 times. At least that has been my experience, right? Practice makes perfect. And by practicing, I was able to learn and keep learning new technologies, existing technologies, and just become a better developer, right? A better engineer, a better software developer. And as a result, create awesome solutions for my customers and clients. And so if that's the path that you want to take, you definitely want to get access to these apps. And beside that, you're gonna be able to interact with other amazing members in our community. You're also gonna gain access to my weekly video podcast where I talk about, things that I'm working on, things that, I'm dealing with right now, kind of this backstage pass, if you will. And above and beyond, you're gonna be supporting this channel and supporting my work. And that is greatly, greatly appreciated. So if you wanna do that, if you wanna get access to all of these amazing apps, amazing resources, connect with an awesome community, and just kind of support this channel, support my work, then you want to click the first link in the description below and join our amazing Patreon community.